A very good morning, everyone. Welcome to StudyIQ English, your favorite UPSC platform in India. Very good morning, Ramu. Very good morning, all dear aspirants. Welcome to the Hindu Analysis news session for today. We are looking at 11th September 2025 news articles. All have been picked up from the Hindu, the New Delhi edition for today. And all these articles that we have selected, about 8 in number, are exclusively for UPSC relevant. These articles, whether the detailed ones for the mains or whether the more short ones for the prelims, will ultimately help you in not only cracking your pre-exam, because we talk about places in the news, we talk about recent developments, geographical, economic, but also these articles provide you important points to write in your mains answer. And on that note, very good morning, Santosh, Ramesh, order as well. So let's have a look at the 8 articles for the day, one after the other. And the first 2 articles are editorial page again. Good morning, Dipesh. The first talks about the Katchatheevu Island. Nothing new. It was in the news across 2024. Today, once again, the writer wants to just give a few more dimensions to that article. Let's analyze these dimensions. And the second article again is the editorial page, page number 8. And we are talking about an article from Chinese ambassador to India. He has highlighted the importance of India-China friendship in 2025. He talks about how wonderful it was to have Indian Prime Minister Shri Modi at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in China. And he also says that the new Tianjin Declaration that the countries like Russia, China, and India have together created could mean wonders and more regional stability in the South Asian region. Proceeded after that are articles such as the importance of roads in areas which have Naxalism in India. We talk about a new development between Russia and NATO as Poland has jumped in the war. Then we also talk about how India is going to become the top industries in the world when it comes to shipbuilding. And of course, we look a little bit at how India US relationship, after weeks of trauma, after weeks of Cold War, regarding the tariff regime imposed by President Trump, today it looks like the solution might be round the corner. Both the prime ministers, the Indian and the American, have had a telephonic conversation in which President Trump has shown interest in finally sorting out the tariff problems. And then, of course, we talk about how in the Himalayan region of India, this is the science page article, one after the other, infrastructural developments are taking place. The result is in front of us. Whether it's the Himachal, Sikkim, or Uttarakhand flash floods, or whether you talk about the recent Punjab floods. Now, today, the Punjab chief minister is complaining that despite the lakhs and crores of fund that is coming from the center to tackle the flood prone areas in Punjab, disaster management, it's not enough. The scale of the disaster is too tremendous, it looks like. So let's see why are these disasters happening from the science page. And now let's begin from the very first piece of the day. Yes, this is page 8 editorial. The article says the way forward on Katchatheevu, the Park Strait disputes. Talking about Park Strait, we know that we are referring to the India-Sri Lankan relationship. Yes, we can say this is GS paper 2, international relations. India's neighbor first policy. So India not only is a key believer in the policy of non-alignment, today the second version, the new version of non-alignment is known as strategic autonomy. But also India is one key countries who believes in India's neighbor first policy. In fact, this was the same sentiment when back in 1974 to 1976. Indian Prime Minister, the then Indian Prime Minister, Miss Indira Gandhi, she had given out the Katchatheevu Island to Sri Lanka. Since then, as per the maritime agreement, Katchatheevu comes under Sri Lankan sovereignty and management. A lot of people create controversies saying that it was a bad decision. It was a failure of India's diplomacy, that why did we give a critical island resource like Katchatheevu? That's a very small island, about a few acres in area, barely about say 0.5 square miles of area, but rich in resources like fish and natural minerals. But at that point of time, under the Maritime Boundary Agreement, India had seceded the Katchatheevu island to Sri Lanka. Today, still the conflict is continuing because although technically there is no dispute, yes, the island belongs to Sri Lanka. But let's remember Sri Lanka also experienced a huge civil war, a civil war that began in the 1980s and then ended recently in 2009. Across all this civil war period, it was the Indian fishermen from Tamil Nadu who were actually fishing by using trawlers. Now, trawlers are electric ships, electric vehicles. Sometimes Indian fishermen have also used bottom trawlers. Bottom trawlers are the ones who are very close to the seabed, and therefore their machines cause a damage to the coral reefs of the sea and the seabed area. Now, this is a claim made by Sri Lanka. Okay, this is a claim made by Sri Lanka, mentioned in the article, that it is because of this continuous fishing by India fishermen in the Sri Lankan area of Katchatheevu that the controversy is still going on. So that's the pitch of this article. Let's analyze the article in more detail. Now we shall avoid all political controversies here. So rather than just discussing why did Indira Gandhi give up the island to Sri Lanka and why is Congress quiet about that today, instead of getting controversial, we will just look at it from a very UPSC perspective. So let's understand that there are some concepts in international relations known as concepts of exclusive economic zone. I will talk about that. A very important international treaty here is known as UNCLOS, United Nations Laws of the Sea, signed back in 1982. Very important again. We will touch upon both these, very important for GS paper 3 also. But let's look at the main controversy here. Now, everything started because, according to Sri Lanka, the Indian fishermen from the region of Tamil Nadu, they keep crossing into the Sri Lankan waters in the Park Strait. Now, Katchatheevu is in Park Strait, the thin land that is a border between India and Sri Lanka, very near Rameshwaram. You can see here in the map also. According to Sri Lanka, it is Indian fishermen who keep crossing that area. And not only do they cross this area for catching fish, but the main problem comes from the fact that all of them are using mechanized trawlers. Mechanized trawlers are machine ships or machine boats whose engine is very low and it therefore touches sometimes close to the shallow seabed. Close to shallow seabed. That's the complaint coming from Sri Lanka, that if Indian boats, all these mechanical machine based trawlers with very deep drillers and very deep parts, who keep touching and who keep irritating and keep scraping the low-lying seabed in the Sri Lankan area of Katchatheevu, this is not acceptable to Sri Lanka. Because Sri Lanka is saying this is about bottom trawling. And bottom trawling is quite bad for the economy. Not only does it damage the coral reef, it also kills precious fish resources. It also destroys the nature of the seabed, ultimately creating ecological imbalance. So in the Park Strait area, Sri Lanka blames Indian fishermen to create this ecological problem. They say that it not only destroys marine life, but it also is giving a problem to their existing fish stocks. Sri Lanka also says this hurts the interest of Sri Lankan fishermen who are still using manual nets, who are known as the artisanal fishermen. An artisanal fisherman is somebody who is doing fishing manually, not by any mechanical or machine boat, but through hand. Sri Lanka says majority of our fishermen are still coming out of the trauma after the long civil war that hampered the country. It was because of the civil war that began as early as 1983 in Sri Lanka and ended in 2009. This decades long civil war had completely cut off the access of Sri Lankan fishermen from the North Sea area near the Katchatheevu. which means they were really suffering because of loss of livelihood and any food security. Today, after 2009, as there is a formal government in Sri Lanka, now what was the conflict all about is a very separate issue. I'll just in one line summarize it. Now, in Sri Lanka, also, there has been a problem between the majority native settlers of Sri Lanka and the minority Tamil inhabitants of the island. So that led to a huge war by the LTTE, the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Ilam. For decades, the civil war kept happening. The Tamil minority felt sidelined, marginalized, and therefore the civil war continued. In 2009, formally, there was some peace and agreement, and a formal government came to power. It's only after 2009 that Sri Lankan fishermen, these poor village artisanal fishermen, finally got some opportunity to come and start doing manual fishing near the Katchatheevu. But they are suffering because Indian fishermen, during all this civil war period, continued to utilize this vacuum because Tamil fishermen from Sri Lanka were not able to come in the North Sea. Civil war was going on. There was curfew. There was often attack. Genocides were going on. Who took the advantage? According to Sri Lanka, Indian fishermen took the advantage. They kept on fishing from 1983 to 2009 and even today by using their bottom trawling machines. Hence, they have completely taken advantage of the resource and destroyed the ecology. This is not good for the Sri Lankan fishermen who, after 2009 civil war, are finally now trying to get back their life and livelihood. This is the complaint coming from Sri Lanka. Now, Sri Lanka has a valid reason to complain. Let's understand back in 1974 and 1976, a period when India was also experiencing the emergency regime under Srimati Indira Gandhi. That was also the time when India and Sri Lanka had signed a deal, a peace deal, to settle the boundary conflict in the Pak Strait area between India and Sri Lanka. Under the deal known as Maritime Boundary Agreement, MBA, Maritime Boundary Agreement, India had ceded Katchatheevu Island to Sri Lanka on one condition, that although Katchatheevu is uninhabited, nobody lives in Katchatheevu. Reason is that Katchatheevu has no resource for getting potable water. There is no drinking water, no fresh water available as such. So life is tough. Except for one church. It's a colonial period church called St. Anthony's Church. Except for that, there is nothing much settlement in Katchatheevu. But under the MBA agreement, the Maritime Boundary Agreement between India and Lanka, between Srimati Indira Gandhi and the then Lankan government, India gave Katchatheevu to Sri Lanka because India believed in non-alignment and neighbor-first policy. India was tired of repeated conflicts. In 1971, during Indira Gandhi's regime, already we had seen the Indo-Pak War, during which Bangladesh was created. India played a key role in creating a separate Bangladesh that time. After that, there was not much energy because even at the level of our own internal politics, we were experiencing a lot of problems. No wonder the emergency came. To sort out the boundary issue in a very quick manner, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi decided to give up Katchatheevu to Sri Lanka. But the condition was, Indian fishermen were allowed to visit St. Anthony's Church in Katchatheevu. But the fishing rights were not clearly given to Indian fishermen. Then what happened? Everything was going well, but in 1983, a major civil war broke in Sri Lanka, as I told you, between the majority inhabitants of Sri Lankan and the minority Tamil population. The war took so many years, it only settled in 2009. During all this period, the North Sri Lankan fishermen from northern Sri Lanka could not access the North Sea. Hence, Tamil Nadu fishermen from India used this opportunity to continue to fish by using their mechanical bottom trawlers through bottom trawling method. Today, Sri Lanka is saying bottom trawling is disaster. We are losing coral reefs, shrimps and fish beds like never before. Sri Lanka also says it is violating my rights under the exclusive economic zone. Sri Lanka has blamed India on 2 points. One, Katchatheevu comes under Sri Lankan sovereignty. Therefore, it should go to exclusive economic zone of Sri Lanka. Now, on that note, what do you mean by exclusive economic zone? Absolutely. Very well said, Arpit, Sakshi, Sudesh, Ramu, Bulbul order. Yes, absolutely. The exclusive economic zone is an area of the ocean that extends from the coastal state's baseline of a country, and it goes up to about 200 nautical miles in such a way that within this area, a given country has every right to do exploration, to exploit, to do fishing, to catch shrimp, to create any kind of maritime policy, and to also exploit natural resources, minerals, oil, gas, anything it wants to. When was this exclusive economic zone concept created? It was created by United Nations Laws of the Sea, the UNCLOS, in 1982. And what is the entire area of exclusive economic zone? 200 nautical miles from the coastal baseline. Sri Lanka says, Katchatheevu is mine. Okay, Santosh, absolutely registered your point. Okay, so now absolutely, as we are agreeing, exclusive economic zone is 200 miles from the coastal baseline. So Sri Lanka is valid, right, in saying that Katchatheevu belongs to me. If Katchatheevu belongs to Sri Lanka, then how can India, how can the fishermen from India use this area for continuous fishing, because then it violates the 1982 UNCLOS exclusive economic zone. Second point where Sri Lanka is angry is about Sri Lanka saying that under a very famous treaty known as Food and Agriculture Organization 1995 Code of Conduct in the Sea. Now, this FAO 1995 Code of Conduct under Sea Protocol says that no country can use bottom trawling. It prohibits clearly the practice of using mechanical trawlers very close to the seabed. So it prohibits what? Bottom trawling. And that's what Sri Lanka is saying. Sri Lanka says India has broken both the clauses, not only the UNCLOS 1982 about the EEZ, exclusive economic zone, but also India has broken the FAO 1995 Code of Conduct in the Sea by continuing to use the bottom trawlers. Because of that, Sri Lankan artisanal fishermen are suffering, because completely the boating and fishing have now become industrial and mechanized, a complete devastation to the livelihood of their own fishermen. So therefore, today this zero point 0.5 square miles rather, of the tiny Katchatheevu uninhabited area should ideally be a part of Sri Lankan sovereignty. Remember, we signed a clause with them, MBA agreement, 1974, Indira Gandhi regime. But today it looks like, according to Sri Lanka, India has not respected that. Let's understand, Katchatheevu is not coming under India's exclusive economic zone. We need to respect this MBA clause here. So therefore, if that's the case, then it should go to the Sri Lankan side of international maritime boundary line. And hence, there is nothing much that we can say. So that exactly is the issue under question here in this article about Katchatheevu. Remember, through the map, the location of this place, it has been in the news throughout. We can expect a question next year also in the prelims. Definitely, you should also be prepared with UNCLOS. And very few people are aware about this FAO, Food and Agriculture Organization 1995 rule, which prohibits bottom trawling. This you can use for your answer writing in GS Paper 3 Science, Technology, Climate Management. Okay, let's have a look at the question. Consider the following statements regarding 1974 India-Sri Lanka Maritime Boundary Agreement. 1. The treaty recognized Katchatheevu Island as a part of Sri Lankan territory. 2. Indian fishermen retained fishing rights around Katchatheevu under the treaty. 3. Indian pilgrims are allowed to visit St. Anthony's Church on Katchatheevu without requiring a visa. Which of these statements do you think is or are valid? You can post your answer. You can verify it also in the last slide. And if you have an opinion on this issue, do share with me. Very good morning there. Shaggy, okay, welcome. Oh my God, I'm sorry to hear that. Please take care of yourself. I'm so happy you could join, Shaggy. Absolutely, Ramu. That's a valid point. It all led to massacre and genocide. I so agree what you're talking about. The Mulli Vaikal massacre. I absolutely agree. Well pointed out there. So, absolutely valid answer here. We know that second option is not valid because under the 1974 MBA, Maritime Boundary Agreement between India and Sri Lanka, although Indian people were allowed to visit St. Anthony's Church, Indian fishermen were not given any rights to fish in that area. So, absolutely 1 and 3 are valid, making C the correct answer. Well done. Second article for the day, page number 8, again editorial, talking about Shanghai Cooperation Organization because it is talking about international relations between China, India, Russia. Because it is talking about SCO, it comes to GS paper 2 IR, international relations and international treaties and protocols. Now the article is written by Zhu Feihong. He is China's ambassador to India right now. And he's quite happy and he is expressing his pleasure, utmost pleasure about the fact that India and China are trying to now crease out their existing differences. He is happy that Indian Prime Minister Shri Modi was attending the SCO summit in China recently. And he's also very excited about the new Tianjin declaration that has come out with support of countries like Russia, India, China. So, Chinese ambassador to India, Mr. Zhu Feihong, has said in this article that Shanghai Cooperation Organization that was founded back in 2001 was at that point of time only the Shanghai Five. It was Shanghai Five. It only had 5 members, including, of course, China, Russia, the Kyrgyzstan, the Kazakhstan, and the Tajikistan. Only these 5 countries were here. But with time, it has evolved to become a large regional cooperation group, especially from 2017 onwards, because 2017 is a very crucial period. During 2017, India took up the membership of SCO. Along with India, there is one more country who has joined SCO in 2017. An enemy of India, diplomatically. Who's that country? Does anybody know? Okay, so 2017, many more countries have now joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and today it is a large regional forum. This year celebrates 75th anniversary of India-China relationship as well. So it's a very special moment, and today SCO has about 9 members, more than 9 members. Aims are security in the South Asian region. Second, better cooperation in defense, more connectivity among all the countries of SCO, better trade, more FTAs, more free trade agreements, and better economic cooperation among the SCO nations. Outcomes of the Tianjin Declaration. Now let's understand, ever since the SCO 2025 has happened, the countries, especially Russia, India, China trio, the new global pole that has been created against American hegemony, has also seen the new Tianjin Declaration being signed. So, what is the purpose of this famous Tianjin Declaration? Very important next year, prelims and mains. So, under Tianjin Declaration 2025, absolutely Ramu, that was Pakistan. Well said. Yes, it is about regional security. And under the Tianjin Declaration, there has been few very important announcements that you should know for UPSC. One, China has spoken about creating an independent Shanghai Cooperation Organization Development Bank. America is sweating. Attempt at de-dollarization, weakening the monopoly of US dollar. Second, the countries have spoken about creating 4 security pillars. 4 security pillars among the members of SCO. 2 critical ones are counter-terrorism, and China has also proposed a global governance initiative. This is coming from China, a global governance initiative. The purpose of the initiative will be to make sure that among all the SCO countries, there will be sovereignty. No country will interfere in internal matters of another partner country. Third, All of them will invest heavily in trade and infrastructure into one another's country on a subsidized rate. Then all these countries will talk about creating civil peace, no more extremism, no more terrorism, and a very people centric approach towards urbanization. Yes, promoting another new multilateralism that gives equal importance to the economies of the global south against the age old domination coming from the countries of the global north, including only the US, EU, yes, sometimes Russia, which have been constantly dominating all the international forums like United Nations Security Council, the WTO, the IMF. So we need to work on that. Now, apart from that, India, China are also trying to create a new path among their own friendship, a new bilateral path between India, China. What is this new path all about? First thing is that the new path says we are partners, not rivals. Too many memes and cartoons are also coming about the elephant and the dragon dancing together. Both the countries are now looking at much better friendship. So they are saying that both of us, since we are now friends and partners once again, China expects India to cooperate more in technology, energy sector, the digital economy sector. Okay, apart from that, cultural and trade investment will be a part of that. But from India's side, there has been a constant concern. Now, one concern clearly is the fact that there has been no final decision taken on the actual line of control. So, every time India initiated a conversation on that, it was delayed by China saying that let's prioritize trade, friendship, and security right now. And we can always look at the LAC or the actual line of control episode later on. The need of the hour is to challenge American supremacy in tariff. So let's become friends. Let's tackle out those other issues. We will keep talking about the boundary issue. That's not a problem. But for India, that is a key concern. Now, why is India feeling this kind of a sudden nauseating nostalgia? So we are becoming very nostalgic right now, suddenly. Also, we are somewhere very, you can say, insecure of China's behavior. Why? So let's remember something similar had happened in the past also. Now, back in the 1954, India and China, India led by Sri Jawaharlal Nehru and Chinese president, they both had signed the Panchsheel Treaty. The Panchsheel Agreement was about five important ways in which both countries will create peace with each other. These included mutual respect for boundary, sovereignty between one another, no interference, no act of aggression or terrorism, dialogue as a way of solving problems. But what happened after that? We all remember the 1962 war and the pain that India went through. So, once again, today the skies are looking quite similar. China is very keen on making a friendship deal. China is quite robust about India's participation in the SCO. But did China once, even once, condemn the terror attack on Pahalgam? Did China even once clearly express any regret for the Galwan Valley clash of 2020? Did China ever say that China will force Pakistan to sort out the aggression and the invasion of the POK region in India? In fact, China continues to support Pakistani army because they are being attacked by the Balochistan Liberation Army. China supports that. China has a sympathy for Pakistani military. So all these things keep making India a little insecure. Because yes, friendship is good. And we also need China's friendship. See, it is not a matter of choice, really. India needs to have a backbone like Shanghai Cooperation Organization because Russia and India are key allies in defense and energy. Today, maximum of India's oil imports are coming from Russia. Defense exports are coming from Russia. Imports. So if India has to keep that Russia-India equation good, if India wants to balance China's monopoly in the South China Sea, if India wants to diversify its trade market because of the shock coming from America, India needs China. There is no exception to that. India needs China. But at the same time, people are saying, critics are saying that India should be quite cautious. See, one thing is China has never completely said anything against Pakistan, despite Pahalgam. Second, China continues to give a very confusing view on the actual line of control with India. 3. India represents the Quad group, the quadrilateral dialogue group with America, Japan, and Australia. China is trying to push its Belt and Road Initiative. Now let's understand. Some part of this Belt and Road Initiative will actually pass through the POK. That's Indian territory. Did they take permission? Will it not impact India's sovereignty? It will. So, therefore, these are certain things India is not comfortable about. And today, as we are trying to make another new episode of friendship, yes, it's good to be each other's friends when it comes to climate change, green energy, better and smooth supply of rare earth metals, good exchange of AI computing, fabrication of chips technology, all that is wonderful. But we really cannot blind trust when it comes to the border issue, when it comes to the Belt and the Road Initiative that threatens India's sovereignty. We cannot be too sure when it comes to China Pakistan equation. So, yes, we have taken all these developments wonderfully. Yes, Shanghai cooperation was a success, but with a pinch of salt. Now, let's have a look at the question. With reference to India China relations, consider the following statements. 1. The Panchsheel Agreement of 1954 between India and China was signed in the context of Tibet or the Tibet Autonomous Region of China. 2. India became a full member of the SCO in 2017. 3. The regional anti-terrorist structure, very important again, RATS, of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization is headquartered at Beijing in China. So, which of these statements do you think is or are valid? If you think, because we have not clearly discussed about the RATS, the anti-terror wing of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and you find the question difficult, we can explain that later as well. Absolutely. It is very dynamic. International relations are wonderful, quite engaging, but also they are very dynamic. It's like every day we have to be updated for our exam. Okay? All right. Shaggy, Dipesh, everyone wants to go with B. Wonderful, Deepesh. Absolutely. Very well said. So, yes, the answer is absolutely 1 and 2 because there is something wrong when we say that the headquarters are in Beijing. Okay. Why I don't want to explain where are the headquarters? That's correct, Dipesh, but I don't want to say it because I want the students to go and look up themselves. Otherwise, they will forget. So, where is the headquarter? And that's why the statement is wrong. Yes, the first two are absolutely valid. And also, the point made by you was very, very valid there, Ramu, that yes, in 2017, not just India, but also Pakistan had joined the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. Okay, so yes, well answered, Dipesh, Shaggy, Shivranjan, Ramu. Yes, yes, very good. You have made a valid point. Both Dipesh and Ramu, that's exactly the headquarter. Well said. Now, the next article, to build roads is to build peace. It's a very short article, really. And this is the page number 9. What does the article say? Article is saying that in India, there is an area that is known as the red zone. Have you heard about the red zone? There are many states in India, including Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, West Bengal, the now northeastern area, parts of Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, parts of Assam. All these are experiencing, or they have been experiencing in the past decades, a lot of insurgency, extremism, secessionism, Maoism, leftist extremism. Because all these states have seen massive Maoist units and other extreme units being operated from here, creating terror, creating violence in the villages. There is a part of India that's known as the red zone. It refers to all those states which are characterized by a high degree of militancy, insurgency of the Maoists. If that's the case, then this article says that sometimes if the government refuses to create infrastructural development, if there are certain villages across Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh, in fact, even Northeast India, which are so remote and so forested that the government has not been able to create roads there, any hospital there, any government school there, it results in the fact that all these insurgents these Maoist groups start taking advantage of this vacuum, and then they start spreading there. They start creating their own authority, their own parallel government over there. Almost like creating tribal panchayats, which have no legal identification, but they are created by these extremist wings. They also use, abuse, and radicalize the innocent village and tribal communities living in the border villages. That's the problem. So, if the government is unable to create road infrastructure or any proper infrastructure for the people, then these insurgent groups are creating their own informal economy over there, their own rules, their own authorities, their own parallel panchayat systems. They will start imposing taxes and tolls on the villagers. They sometimes even start providing basic services like education and medical aid. But the problem that is that this education that they will provide will not be a state sponsored education. It will never promote a national unity. It will not be a formal modern education. Yes, they will try to radicalize the poor children. That's the problem of insurgency, and the only way the government can solve the problem is to create more infrastructure in the Naxalite areas. Absolutely, Shaggy. A growing body of research in India has proven that in states like Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, Odisha, these are the core states of India, and yet they experience the red corridor phenomena. Red zone, you can also call it the red corridor. They experience the red corridor phenomena. What is the red corridor phenomena? As I said, these states have seen a high prevalence of Maoist and insurgents and Naxalite groups. What happens is that in case the government fails to provide electricity, drinking water, as I said, basic amenities, it is these mafias, these red corridor Naxalites, that then try to capture the entire area with their own slogans, with their own authority, and their own informal systems. For example, a very interesting observation in the article says that in certain tribal areas, it was found after the research that Naxalite groups were also running medical aid clinics, reproductive health care centers. They were also taking care of health services, education services, some kind of waterways and sanitation as well. But these are not legitimate, because what is legitimate? Legitimate is backed by law. When something has a law behind it, a written law, a constitution, that is legitimate. So the government is legitimate because government follows constitution. It is elected by the people through democratic process. That's called authority. What these Naxalites are using is called power. Power in its most crude form. It is not legitimate. It is not founded in any law. But what to do? Whenever in any remote area, village, or forest, there is a lack of formal state institutions, government institutions, it will always create a capturing of the area of the red corridor area by the Naxalite outfits. So that's the issue we are talking about. Very important internal security in India. Very important. So the Maoist affected tribal areas are therefore areas which need modern infrastructure. In this case, roads are not about only connectivity, but roads are a symbol of government's presence and legitimacy in that area. For example, whenever the government is creating proper highways through forest, highways which cut through the tribal and the small villages where there is red corridor presence, Naxalite presence, it gives a feeling to the terror organizations that yes, we cannot exceed our limits. The government is here to monitor us. It also gives confidence to the local tribals and the villagers that there's nothing to worry. The government is there because there is a police station, there is a forest reserve force. Yes, there is a medical hospital. We can go and lodge a complaint here. And we will not be abused by the Naxalites. These Naxalites are forcing the poor children from these red corridor areas to fight wars on their behalf. They hijack them mentally, physically. They radicalize them against Indian government. They give them arms and ammunition from a young age, as young as 3 years of age. They make them their own soldiers in the war, a war that has no legitimacy. So therefore, it is the need of the government to create some banking, to create schools, police stations, and markets regulated by the government, so that the government can reclaim these areas legally from the impact of the Maoist. Research has shown the more the infrastructure, the lesser the crime. The more the infrastructure of the state, the lesser the nationalism. So therefore, we have a choice between formal and informal governance. By creating the formal governance and infrastructure, we can stop these anti-state elements from thriving and the poor villagers and tribals from getting radicalized. Because government and government institutions, even at the panchayat level, they operate on a constitutional basis. There are elections done and people are given a chance to participate. Now look at Schedule 6 of the Constitution. Even the states like Assam, Mizoram, Tripura, Meghalaya, which are considered more tribal, where there is a heavy tribal presence, there is a unique tribal culture prevailing. Here also the government has given the provision of tribal autonomy. The government has created autonomous district units so that the tribals can participate in their own administration. That's the importance of the government. But when the government is not there, then Maoists come, they create their own khap panchayats. Khap panchayats are illegal, informal panchayat setups which give justice to people. So they take over jurisdiction, they take over arbitrary laws, taxes on people. They also provide medical aid, but on the condition that yes, people will join them in the war against India. So the article says that just like the Border Roads Organization is doing this wonderful job of not leaving any border of India unattended by making roads in the most difficult territory, for example, the Umlingla Pass. Today, it's the highest motorable pass in the world, created by the Border Road Organization. Something similar has to be done even in the Naxalite areas. Now, the article is giving you a beautiful case study. You can use this in GS paper 2, Social Justice for Vulnerable Tribals. The case study is about Chhattisgarh, which is the epicenter, the main area of Red Corridor, Maoist insurgency in India. Since the tribal population is large, it is a very difficult geographical area, also heavily forested. The government could not create infrastructure and its presence on time. Chhattisgarh became a separate state in 2000 alongside Jharkhand and Uttarakhand. Since then, the government presence in interiors was minimal. What happened as a result? Every third day, we used to hear claims from the World Health Organization that poor tribal women are being killed in the name of witch hunting, in the name of black magic. Similarly, Maoists were coming, randomly doing genocide of the villages, capturing women, kidnapping young children and radicalizing them. That was the situation until BVR Subramaniam, the then Chief Secretary of the Niti Aayog of India, he was the CEO. He designed a proper governance plan to counter Naxalism. Under this plan, he said infrastructure should come first and peace will follow later. It was a very successful experiment, very successful. Because then, under this plan, they started creating roads in the Maoist areas. They tried to create more police reserve forces like guards, forest guards. They tried to bring in government primary schools, primary health care centers. They expanded the operation of ASHA workers. They created police station fare ration shops under the public distribution system of India. This showed at least 40% reduction in Maoist interference in that area. Now, what a wonderful case study that is, which means whenever there is infrastructure with participation of the local communities, for example, the 5th and 6th schedule of Indian Constitution, they talk about tribal participation in management. 5th schedule through tribal councils, tax, tribal autonomous councils. 6th schedule specifically for 4 states, Assam, Meghalaya, Tripura, Mizoram, by creating district autonomous councils. We need a similar pattern like what Niti Aayog did. Once you treat the isolated tribes as Indian citizens, not just as tribal communities, change will come. The insurgents will lose their control over these people. When these people start getting, the poor villagers and the isolated tribals, when they have education, when they can participate in formal economy jobs, as you're saying, order, when they have an opportunity to skill themselves, to have better police assistance, then why will they not fight radicalization? They will not join it. They will fight it. And this idea therefore proves that development is the real weapon against insurgency. I do expect a question like this next year in the mains exam. They might ask you, the UPSC will ask you in GS paper 2 or paper 1. Development is the real weapon against insurgency. And this article is your answer. Okay. You can also talk about this case study. Include as many current affairs and case studies in your answers. The more dynamic you make it, the more marks you get. Always understand. Abstract theoretical answers will not get you marks. You have to relate them with everyday current events. Now, the next article, quite an easy one, but it's a complicated issue actually. We are talking about world politics, IR, international relations. Yes, it's a global news that in Nepal there has been a lot of violence since the last 2 days. While we all know it is happening because Nepali government decided to discontinue social media platforms like X, Facebook, and many others. What was the reason? Instagram also. The reason was that Nepali government said all these international social media platforms have not re-registered on time as per the Nepali law. Hence, they were prohibited. But the Generation Z, the Gen Z of Nepal, the young generation of Nepal could not tolerate. Many of them depend on social media, not only for interaction among their family members settled outside Nepal, but also they derive their income from social media platforms. They stay connected through that. And yes, they have retaliated very badly. There were very, very painful scenes on media where ex or prior leaders of the Nepali government were also being killed and thrashed on the roads. Literally, they were being dragged on the road. This reminded me of the Manipur violence that's going on in India. It is heartrending to see that about hundreds of people came on the street, took control of the security, and created a curfew in Nepal. So, what is happening in Nepal? That is something we need to know. Also, unfortunately, it is so many Indian tourists, nearly 600 Indian pilgrims who had been visiting the area as they were conducting the Kailash Mansarovar Yatra, the Kailash Mansarovar journey. They have also been stranded. They are now caught in the Nepal China border. Many are still stuck in Kathmandu, and it is an uncertain situation because we don't know what happens now. So, the trigger point, the trigger of this whole fight was a ban on social media by the Nepali government. But this was only the trigger. If you remember when we discussed the 1857 revolt of India, then that time we often say what was the immediate cause, what was the long term cause. Similarly, if you ask about what is happening in Nepal right now, the immediate trigger cause was the ban on social media platforms. But there is a longer cause, there is a bigger cause behind it. It was a tragedy that was already brewing for a long time now. So, Nepal has been one of the most unstable democracies in the world. Ever since it became a democracy in 1990, 30 times the government has changed. No prime minister was able to complete 5 years tenure in office. Nepal has highest change of the government regime, much beyond what is legally allowed in most countries. There were two pro-democracy movements in Nepal, quite like they keep happening in Myanmar against Janta by the leader Aung San Suu Kyi. Similarly, in Nepal, they had two democratic movements, the Jan Andolan of 1990 and 2005. But Nepal's democracy could not be settled. Today, Nepal has the highest maternal mortality, very high unemployment, severe corruption in the government. Therefore, people took social media ban as an immediate opportunity, and they are trying to punish the Nepali leadership for the instability and unemployment and poverty that has forced thousands of Nepali people to exit their own country. Majority go to the Middle East, West Asia, and then comes India. Because overall unemployment is 12.5% as per a 2023 data. Youth unemployment is 23% almost between the demographic dividend young age group. Poorest households in Nepal, 17.2%. They are unemployed, and the richest are only 8.5%. Geographically, Kathmandu Valley has the highest number of poor and unemployed people. Joblessness, it is among the highest in the world, which means people have to leave Nepal. There is no opportunity for the young people to pursue higher technical education or to continue to find formal sector white collar jobs. Joblessness, even among females, very, very high. There are about 37.1% households that are only led by females. Now, therefore, Nepal is one of the countries where in the GDP of Nepal, as per 2024, 33% contribution comes from outside remittances, which means Nepalis who live outside Nepal are the ones who are running the GDP of Nepal. 33% of the Nepali GDP is coming from outside external foreign remittances that are sent by Nepali diaspora back to their homeland. Nepal is the fourth highest country which is completely dependent on remittances from abroad. Now, where do majority of Nepali people work? Yes, it's West Asia, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, Malaysia. Unfortunately, in Qatar and Saudi Arabia, majority of these people are working in the blue collar segment, informal jobs at the airport, railway construction, infrastructural construction, construction sites. That's where they are underpaid, grossly overworked. Sometimes their passports are taken away, victims of sheer human abuse. Next is, of course, Malaysia, UAE, and India. So that's the condition of Nepal right now, with a poor democracy, with a lack of government support to the young, to the educated, high poverty, low national income, a GDP completely dependent on foreign remittances. Yes, it was a high time the youth would anyway have erupted in fight. And today, as the government did a ban on social media, saying that these media platforms have not abided by our registration law, people could not tolerate anymore. Hence, the tragedy is going on. Yes, it is very difficult for India also. There are multiple Indians settled in Nepal. As I said, many tourists are stranded right now. The instability in the area, which is already very, very geographically sensitive. Now, there is a place called the Lipu Lake Pass, if you know, Uttarakhand. It's a tri-junction, Nepal, India, China. Already it was becoming a matter of concern for Nepal. And today's protest has once again pushed it, uh, you know, to an indefinite time, that when will the problem be sorted out. So let's have a look at the question. With reference to Nepal, consider the following statements. 1. Since becoming a parliamentary democracy in 1990, Prime Minister of Nepal, no Prime Minister of Nepal has completed a full term. 2. Remittances account for 30% of Nepali GDP, making it the fourth, or the question says, making it the world's most remittance dependent economies of the world. 3. Majority of Nepali residents remittances still come from India. Think again, which of these statements are correct? Look at the last statement, please. Majority of Nepal's foreign remittance comes from India. No. Majority comes from West Asia, countries like Qatar, Saudi Arabia. India comes next. Third is not valid, which means A can be the only answer. Okay? But even in the second statement, there is something that's not looking valid. Nepal is not the world's most remitted country. It is the fourth largest country in the world which depends on foreign remittances. And the first statement is absolutely valid. So let's change the option A and let's say one only, which means A could be the right answer. Only the first statement here is correct. So well said, Shivaranjan, Ramu, Dipesh, Shaggy. Absolutely, yes. Let's keep it only first statement valid. What is wrong with the second one? 33% of Nepali GDP is depending on foreign remittances, not 30. And Nepal is the fourth largest country which depends on foreign remittances, not the first. Okay, so let's remember that. Now, a good piece of news here before we actually end. India is now becoming among the top 5 shipbuilding countries of the world by 2047. That's a good news. We are becoming Atmanirbhar and further developed even in the area of shipping and maritime industry. So India currently has percent. In fact, less than 1% share. Absolutely. Yes, yes. Let me check. If it is one of, then it is correct. So let's remove this also. Making it the world's most remittance dependent. No, it's not. Very well pointed out, Ramu. That's absolutely pointed out. Yes, it was correct. But now that we have tweaked it a little bit, let's just change it to avoid the confusion. You are right. Very valid point, Ramu. Great observation. Let's just quickly tweak it. Let's say the second statement says it is the most remittance dependent. So it is the fourth most remittance dependent. Now we agree unanimously that A is valid because only first statement is correct. Okay. Now that we've changed it, but your point is valid. So right now, India has lesser than 1% share in global shipbuilding, quite low. India ranks 16th in the world when it comes to shipbuilding industry. If I ask you an interesting question, will you try to answer? Which is the largest ship breaking yard in India? What's my question? Which is India's largest ship breaking yard? When old ships become useless, they are broken down by people. Yes, it's very, very polluting. It's very, very contaminated industry. But it happens. So, which is India's largest ship breaking yard? Let's see who can find an answer. You can post it in the comment box. And if you want to share anything extra about that, you're most welcome there also. So, if India is contributing lesser than 1% in global shipbuilding and we are ranking 16th, we are targeting that by 2047, we want to become among the top 10 maritime countries by 2030 and top 5 by 2047. Viksit Bharat mission. Indian seafarers, Indian sea travelers are 12% of global workforce. We want to make it 25% so. Maritime sector contributes 4% to India's GDP. We want to increase it to 12% by 2047. So therefore, we are trying to create a maritime development fund by allocating $3 million into it, so that 45% of this fund, the $3 million fund, can go for shipbuilding and repair, 20% for building Indian tonnage. Very well answered, Shaggy and Ramu. It is Alang in Gujarat. Absolutely. Very well said. Very well said. It is Alang. Do remember, this is the largest ship breaking yard in India. A cause of massive pollution, massive ecological degradation. You can take it as a case study. Well pointed out. Thank you. So now we are trying to expand, and by 2047, we want to make ourselves top 5 in ship building industry in the maritime sector. So currently, which are the Indian government initiatives to promote the blue economy? Economy based on sea and maritime resources. One, Sagar Mala program of 2015, very important. Objective is to create modern, well-connected, and extremely computerized, digitized ports in India to enhance connectivity and to improve the volume of trade. Then the next is Indian National Shipbuilding Plan, INSP. The purpose is to make India a hub in the maritime sector by 2030 and to make India the top 5 shipbuilding nations by 2047, which is also our target for Viksit Bharat. So 2047 is very important. 1947 we achieved independence. 2047 we want to become absolutely a zero carbon economy. And yes, we also want to become Viksit Bharat, complete Atmanirbhar in every domain. So the key targets of INSP, Indian National Shipbuilding Plan, increase Indian share in the global shipping from 0.8 right now to 3%. That's huge. Right now it's less than 1. Please understand. Today India's share in global shipbuilding is less than 1, 0.8. What do we want? We want to make it 3%. Promote 200 new ships in Indian shipyards. We want to build 200 new modern computerized ships in India. We want to promote environment friendly shipping, green shipping, renewable energy, using solar energy, nuclear energy in the ship sector, in the maritime sector instead of the conventional fuels. That's a good news. Now talking once again about GS paper 2, international relations, one of our last articles for the day. The world is once again on the brink of a major war. Since 2022, Russia-Ukraine war has been going on. But yesterday, for the first time after 2022, Russia has done a huge attack on Ukraine, Kiev. The attack is major. Unfortunately, Russia often uses Belarus. Now, Belarus, once again, is an ex-Soviet Union country. Post 1991, all these countries became separated from Russia. Belarus, with its capital called Minsk or Minsk. It's one such country which Russia has used for a very long time. Even during the Chernobyl disaster of the 1980s, Russia's nuclear disaster, there was a majority of pollution that came and sank in Belarus. Can you imagine how? You'll be shocked too. Because the tragedy happened in Russia, they wanted to protect Moscow because Moscow was the head of the parliament. What they did, they started putting silver iodide on the clouds. Now, silver iodide is a substance that is used to create artificial rain. All these clouds were contaminated with nuclear dust, with nuclear radioactive material. They formed clouds, these air particles were full of nuclear contamination. They put silver iodide, and through a jet plane, they started shoving these clouds towards the east so that Moscow is safe. Now, majority of these clouds actually caused a rainfall in Belarus. So, Belarus has long paid a price of being Russian neighbor. Once again, something similar happened today. As Russia was targeting too many missiles in the Ukrainian region, some of these drones actually went and landed in Poland. Now, Poland is upset. Poland is very upset, and Poland has asked for help from the NATO countries. Because under NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, there is an Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which is about collective defense. It is about collective defense. Under the Collective Defense Charter, if any of the NATO nations experiences a threat or a security attack from any other country, then all NATO countries will come in the defense. Now, what if this actually now is triggered? Already it is being spoken about because multiple Russian drones have entered Poland. Poland is now asking help under Article 5 from its NATO allies. So, what happened? Netherlands actually provided Poland with Dutch fighter jets to intercept the drones. So successfully, Poland has intercepted the drone, but Poland is very angry. It says it is an act of aggression. It's an act of aggression. Okay. Another thing is that these drones, according to Russia, were not meant to attack Poland as such. They actually came from Belarus, as Russia and Belarus were conducting some joint military exercise. So it was not intentional. It just happened to lose their way due to some jamming issue, and they entered Poland. But Poland is not ready to understand that. Poland says no, it is not accidental, it is actually deliberate. So therefore, Poland is saying already Russia is not ready to adjust. Yesterday's attack on Ukraine was one of the largest after the initial war period of 2022. So now there is a risk that what if Poland and Netherlands, they take it seriously, which they already have, and this offense leads to invocation of Article 5 of the NATO Charter, which means collective defense, and many other countries come and join the war. Then we shall officially enter another world war. So let's look at the question. Consider the following statements regarding NATO and the recent development in Eastern Europe. 1. NATO aircraft were involved in intercepting multiple Russian drones that entered Polish landscape in September 25. 2. This incident marked the first time NATO confronting a potential threat in its eastern territory airspace since a massive full-scale invasion in 2022. And last, NATO invoked Article 5 in response to Polish airspace violation by Russia. So you can choose out the valid answer. Okay? We can choose out the valid answer. Absolutely, Dipesh, absolutely, Ramu. These are valid points that you're making. By 2047, India wants to become Viksit Bharat. By 2070, India wants to become a completely carbon neutral country, zero carbon emission. But by 2047, at least half of this should be met. Today, we want 45% reduction by 2030. By 2047, 50% reduction. Okay, so well pointed out. Okay, Deepesh says the answer is A, 1 and 2. So 1 is absolutely valid statement. I agree. So 2 is also actually correct. So if 1 and 2 are correct, then let's look at the third. Yes, so NATO has not invoked it yet. Right now, Poland is only threatening that we will invoke Article 5. Definitely we will invoke, because it is about collective defense, but yet it has not been invoked. Because if it is invoked, then everybody will come in the war, including America. That will be a disaster. Right now, only one country called Holland, that has sent the Dutch fighter pilots to help Poland intercept Russian drones. But as of now, it's not a full invocation, so I'll agree the answer should be A then. Absolutely well said, Deepesh. Shaggy. Okay. Now, on to the last, one of the last articles again. Now, you will be surprised to know that finally India and US are on the negotiation table once again. After the prolonged tariff war, President Trump calling India importing oil from Russia and supporting genocide in Ukraine. For the first time, American President and Indian Prime Minister have had a telephonic conversation. They have had a social media discussion, and now they are ready to do some kind of a adjustment. They both want to try to solve the trade dispute. They want to settle the barrier problem, and therefore they want to balance the relationship that they have with each other. India is still giving more clarity with regards to importing its oil from Russia as a pure economic necessity, whereas US is demanding that India should reduce more trade barriers on America and further try to create more American entry into agriculture and dairy sector, which India has been denying all these months. India also at the same time has requested for a more market access into America and a fair trade tariff. Not 50%, that is completely spoiling the interest of Indian exporters right now. Both the countries are saying if they are able to successfully solve the tariff problem, if India agrees to little bit cooperate in reducing its Russian oil import, in allowing slightly more access to America into its agriculture, then US also will try to cancel the tariff duty, and then both of them can together sign a free trade agreement, which can mean wonders to two such countries which in the past have been the largest bilateral trading partners. And now the last article for the day. This is GS paper 3, Science, Technology, Climate Mitigation, Disaster Management. We are saying that everybody, including the Indian Meteorological Organization, the IMO, are calling the repeated flash floods, cloud bursts in the Himalayan areas, in the Himalayan states of Himachal, Uttarakhand, Sikkim. Today, the floods are happening in Punjab. Recently, North India, the Delhi NCR region was also floating in water. Everybody is saying this is all about cloud burst. It's a climate phenomena. But in reality, it is not exactly a climate phenomena. It is a human-made problem. It is an anthropogenic problem. An anthropogenic problem is one that humans create. Because in the Himalayan region, wherever there is flash flooding happening, like it happened in Chamoli, like it happened in 2001 Kedarnath tragedy, multiple rapid flooding. Uttarakhand, Kashmir, massive devastation last week. All of this is not only a natural disaster. It is not happening because flash flood, glacial lake outburst is happening due to global warming only. It is purely a human-made disaster. Because it's very easy to call these problems as cloudbursts. We cannot oversimplify these problems. We cannot reduce the blame on humans. All this is anthropogenic, human created, absolutely, Ramu. Reckless urbanization is responsible. Because of creating more buildings, more commercial and residential spaces to promote more tourism, hotels, shopping complexes. In the Himalayan region, deforestation has taken place. Himalayas, especially the Shivalik belt, the lowest belt. Himalaya has 3 layers, you know that, the greater Himalaya, the middle Himalaya, Himadri, Himachal, then comes Shivalik, the most lower one. Shivalik is the most weak These are young fold mountains. Himalayas are still developing. They are not strong. They are not made up of rock solid substance like India's Deccan Plateau or the Aravalli. They are delicate. If you remove trees from here, it loses the hold on the soil. The soil being very fragile, it breaks down owing to heavy rainfall or construction pressure. Roads, the Char Dham Yatra, bridges, hydroelectric projects, all of them create uncertainty in land hold, creating land subsistence. Uttarkashi 2024. Similarly, there are mudslides happening. Himalayan temperature is increasing faster than ever. According to a recent estimation, the glaciers are melting at a very quick pace, causing the phenomena of glacier lake outbursts. The glacial lakes that were supposed to hold a lot of water are spilling out. All this needs more stronger environmental impact assessment that India lacks right now. We need more EIA, environmental impact assessment. We need to respect the protocols of the National Green Tribunal, NGT, the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forest. It has to make sure that these projects are not getting permission in areas that are very sensitive. Yes, we can reduce tourism, we can reduce consumerism, but to actually keep on constructing, digging, and removing the forest in an area that is as sensitive as the Shivalik range, it only means in future we are looking at many more disasters. And no matter how much disaster management you improve under the Disaster Management Act, it will not help, because it's always better to prevent than to regret later. That's the pitch of the article. And here's where I'll take your leave for the day. Thank you so much for being with me. Yes, absolutely, Ramu, Shaggy, these are valid comments. We are not even doing any compensatory afforestation. I so agree, these are man made disasters. Now, thank you for your wonderful comments and lovely participation. And if you are enjoying these videos, do like, share, and subscribe us. Tomorrow, I'll be here same time with another Hindu session. If you want to share anything, if you want to, you know, understand more about any particular topic in form of a video, in form of notes, a PDF, then please feel free and share anything you want to share with me in the comment box. I'll be there following all your comments and I will immediately take care of what you want. Now, one last announcement. We have this end of season sale going on, and it is only valid till tomorrow, 12th September, 11 p.m. So, in case you are looking for a more professional guidance in UPSC, judiciary, optional, state PSC, now is the time to use the code SPLIVE